October 31st, 2008, my girlfriend and I stayed in an Airbnb for the night. The day went pretty well. When night fell, it was exceptionally beautiful outside because we were surrounded by majestic mountains and a lush forest. So, we went to bed around 10:30 p.m. After we had fallen asleep, we began to hear sounds of people, both men and women, and even children. At first, we assumed that there was another family in a nearby house. However, the sounds kept getting louder, and my girlfriend and I realized that we hadn't seen any other houses when we arrived at our Airbnb. We were puzzled, thinking the noise was coming from downstairs. I decided to investigate, but I didn't find anything unusual, so I returned to bed. However, the noise continued to intensify. I went back downstairs to check, but everything appeared to be normal. Nevertheless, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, like we were being watched. I brushed off the feeling and headed back upstairs. When I reached our room, I was shocked to find my girlfriend suspended in mid-air above the bed. She was standing on nothing but air. I tried to pull her down but couldn't, and then she suddenly grabbed my neck and threw me against the wall. My head hit the wall, and I blacked out. When I regained consciousness, my girlfriend was yelling my name. We were deep in the forest, tied to chairs and surrounded by a group of 5 witches. One of the witches was the landlord of the Airbnb we had been staying at. She was in cahoots with them. These witches were attempting to use black magic to harm us, and it seemed like we were going to meet a gruesome end. But then, a miracle occurred. A group of 8 teenagers arrived to our rescue, having heard our desperate cries for help. They began making loud noises to distract the witches, causing 3 of them to leave to investigate. 2 witches were left near us. The 3 boys from the group sneaked up behind those witches and knocked them out with pieces of wood, enabling us to break free. We all fled the scene. We expressed our deep gratitude to those teenagers as they were the reason we escaped unharmed. We never returned to that place and rarely talked about the terrifying experience. My boyfriend and I booked an Airbnb in a quiet little town for a 2-day trip. We had important meetings about the town's future the next morning. We arrived at the Airbnb in the evening, and I was really tired from the journey. So, we had an early dinner, and I went to bed. But my boyfriend decided to have a drink with his friend who lived in the town. A few hours later, around 9 p.m., there were loud knocks on the front door. I woke up in a hurry, feeling scared. I went to the door and asked, "Who is it?" 2 women outside told me they were lost in the neighborhood and asked me to order an Uber for them because their phones had no battery. I opened the door to help them, but everything changed in an instant. They pulled out a gun from their bag and pointed it at my head. I was terrified. They took our things, including our phones, laptops, and even our food, and then left the house. I had no way to contact my boyfriend since they took my phone, but he returned after about 30 minutes. I told him everything, and we went to the nearest police station to report the incident. We filed a complaint against the 2 women and left that town, vowing never to return. In a remote corner of the world, deep within an ancient forest, there lay a village with a history shrouded in darkness. It was a place most people had forgotten, and for good reason. But 4 friends from the IT field, curious and adventurous, decided to visit this forgotten village for a weekend getaway. Little did they know, their Airbnb home held secrets that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The 2 couples, David and Emily and Mike and Sarah, were close friends. They had heard tales of the eerie village from a coworker who had visited years ago and had warned them to stay away. But the lure of the unknown was too strong for their adventurous spirits. The journey was long and tiring, and as they entered the dense forest, the world outside disappeared, swallowed by ancient trees and encroaching darkness. Their Airbnb was a quaint, old cottage nestled among the towering trees. The host, an elderly woman named Agnes, welcomed them with a smile that seemed almost too friendly. She handed them a set of antique keys, the metal cold and unsettling to the touch. The cottage itself was filled with strange trinkets and vintage items, each telling its own eerie story. As night descended, the wind howled through the forest, and the walls of the cottage creaked like a chorus of ghostly whispers. Their first night was relatively peaceful, but unease hung in the air. They gathered in the dimly lit living room, sharing stories and laughter as the fireplace crackled. The flickering flames cast eerie shadows that danced like lost souls on the walls. On the second night, things took a sinister turn. As they lay in their beds, strange sounds echoed through the cottage. Whispered voices and eerie footsteps seemed to emanate from the very walls. Emily woke up to find the old cuckoo clock on the wall ticking backward, the bird's haunting call echoing through the house. David and Mike ventured outside to investigate, flashlights in hand. The forest was unnaturally silent, and a shiver ran down their spines as they stumbled upon an old, overgrown cemetery. The gravestones were worn and unreadable, but one bore the name Agnes. Back inside, Emily and Sarah had discovered an ancient diary hidden beneath the floorboards. Its pages detailed tales of the village's dark past, describing rituals and sacrifices performed by its inhabitants. It spoke of a curse that bound the souls of the villagers to the land, forever seeking retribution. As they read, a feeling of dread enveloped them. The candles flickered wildly, casting eerie, elongated shadows across the room. A figure began to form in the corner, its outline shifting and contorting like a specter. The friends screamed, fleeing from the room, and David dropped the diary. The apparition pursued them, a tormented soul seeking release from the curse. It whispered their darkest secrets, tearing apart the bonds of friendship. As the night wore on, they found themselves alone, haunted by their past mistakes and deepest fears. The following morning, the forest swallowed the village, leaving no trace of their presence. Their Airbnb cottage stood abandoned, its windows shattered, and the old cuckoo clock stopped forever. The friends had become victims of a curse they could never escape. Trapped in a nightmarish purgatory, they wandered the village, their faces eternally marked by terror and despair.